If you're 40 years old right now, you have exactly 25 years until traditional retirement age. And here's the brutal truth. Most 40-year-olds are so far behind on retirement savings that they'll either never retire or they'll retire broke. Look, I need you to understand something. 40 is simultaneously the worst and the best age to be asking this question. The worst because you've already lost the most powerful years of compound interest. The best because you still have just enough time to fix it if you act right now. Here's the thing. If you're 40 and you're just starting to take investing seriously, you're not alone. But you also don't have time to waste on bad advice or incremental improvements. You need a plan that's aggressive, realistic, and mathematically sound. According to Fidelity's quarterly retirement analysis, the average 401k balance for people in their 40s is about $93,400. Sounds decent, right? Except that's nowhere near enough. Financial advisors generally recommend having 3 times your annual salary saved by age 40. If you make $75,000 a year, you should have $225,000 saved. Most people have less than half that. And here's where it gets really interesting. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement account balance for Americans aged 40 to 44 is just $45,000. That means half of people in their 40s have less than $45,000 saved for retirement. That's not a retirement fund. That's a used car. Now you might be thinking, Brian, I know I'm behind. That's why I'm watching this. Just tell me what to do. I will. But first, you need to understand why most investment advice for 40-year-olds is completely wrong and how the math changes when you're starting late. If you're 40 and serious about building wealth before it's too late, hit subscribe because we're about to challenge everything you think you know about investing at this age. Here's what most people don't realize. The investment advice that works at 25 doesn't work at 40. The timeline is different. The risk tolerance is different. The math is completely different. Most financial advisors will tell you the same generic advice regardless of age. Invest 15% in a balanced portfolio. Max your 401k. Stay the course. That advice is fine if you started at 25. If you're starting at 40, it's catastrophically insufficient. Let me show you the math. Say you're 40, making $75,000 a year, and you start investing 15%. $11,250 annually in a mix of stocks and bonds, returning an average of 7% per year. At 65, you'll have about $707,000. That sounds good until you realize that $707,000 generates about $28,000 per year in retirement using the 4% withdrawal rule. Combined with Social Security of maybe $25,000 per year, you're living on $53,000 annually. You went from $75,000 pre-retirement to $53,000 in retirement. That's a 29% pay cut. And that's if everything goes perfectly. No market crashes, no job losses, no emergencies that force you to stop contributing. Look, conventional advice assumes you have 40 years of compound growth. At 40, you have 25 years. That's a 37.5% shorter timeline. You can't just follow the same advice and expect it to work. Let me show you exactly what you're up against, because understanding the numbers is critical. Someone who starts investing $500 per month at age 25 and continues until 65, that's 40 years, at an 8% average return will accumulate about $1.75 million. Someone who starts at 40 investing the same $500 per month for 25 years, they'll have about $470,000. Starting 15 years later costs you $1.28 million. You invest only 37.5% less time, but end up with 73% less money. That's the brutal math of compound interest when you start late. And here's the kicker. To catch up to that 25-year-old, you'd need to invest about $1,850 per month starting at 40. That's nearly 4 times as much. Most people can't afford that. Which is why most 40-year-olds who are behind will never catch up using conventional strategies. But here's where it gets really interesting. There's a different approach that actually works at 40, and it requires you to think about investing completely differently. Before we get to the strategy, let's talk about why people in their 40s make terrible investment decisions. First, there's regret paralysis. You know you should have started earlier. You beat yourself up about it, and that guilt makes you freeze instead of taking action. I see this constantly. People spend more time regretting the past than fixing the future. Second, there's overcompensation risk. You realize you're behind, so you swing for the fences. You dump money into crypto, meme stocks, or some guaranteed real estate deal. You're trying to make up 15 years in 5 years. It rarely works. Usually, you just lose the money you did have. Third, there's lifestyle entrenchment. At 25, you can live cheaply. At 40, you've got a mortgage, kids, car payments, a lifestyle you're used to. Drastically cutting expenses to invest more feels impossible, so you don't do it. And finally, there's proximity bias. Retirement at 65 feels far away when you're 25. At 40, it's 25 years. That's still far enough that it doesn't feel urgent, so you keep putting it off. Look, all of these psychological traps are completely understandable, but they're also how you end up 50 with $60,000 saved, realizing you have no path to retirement. You have to break out of these patterns. And the way to do that is to understand exactly what strategy actually works at 40. Here's the framework for investing at 40. It's aggressive, but it works. Foundation first, do this immediately. Get a $10,000 emergency fund. Eliminate all debt above 8% APR. Capture your full employer 401k match. Without this foundation, everything else collapses. Aggressive accumulation. Max your 401k at $23,500 per year. Max your Roth IRA at $7,000 per year. If you have a high deductible health plan, max your HSA. Anything beyond that goes into a taxable brokerage account. But Brian, I can't afford $30,000 per year in savings. Then you need to increase income or cut expenses. At 40, that's what it takes. The math is unforgiving. Asset allocation: 80% stocks, 20% bonds. Not conservative, not 100% stocks. 80-20 gives you growth with enough stability to ride out crashes. For stocks, 90% total market index, 10% international. For bonds, total bond market index. Don't get fancy, don't pick stocks. You don't have time to gamble. The real numbers: if you invest $30,500 annually from age 40 to 65 at 8% average return, you'll have $2.48 million. That's $99,000 per year using the 4% rule. Plus, Social Security gets you to $127,000 annually in retirement. But that requires saving 40% of a $75,000 income. That's the reality at 40. The hard trade-offs: average car payment of $738 per month invested for 25 years equals $715,000. That car payment is costing you $750,000 in retirement. A $100,000 bigger house costs about $500 per month extra in mortgage. That's $483,000 in lost retirement savings. $5,000 annual vacations invested instead equals $395,000 over 25 years. These aren't judgments, they're math. At 40, you're choosing between comfort now and security later. The income side: cutting expenses alone won't work for most people. You also need to increase income. Switch jobs for a 15% raise, start a side business, use your industry experience to consult. At 40, you should be in peak earning years. Convert that experience into actual income increases. If you have kids, your kids can borrow for college. You cannot borrow for retirement. Don't destroy your financial future to pay for their education. Contribute what you can after securing your retirement. This week, calculate your net worth. Calculate annual expenses. Calculate retirement need. Expenses times 25. See the gap. This month, build $5,000 emergency fund minimum. Start a TAC plan on high-interest debt. Ensure you're getting full employer match. Next 6 months, increase 401k contribution monthly until maxed. Open-end fund, Roth IRA, set everything to automatic. Ongoing, every raise goes to retirement. Every bonus goes to retirement. Review and increase annually. Look, if you're 40 and just getting serious about investing, you're late. Not too late, but late. You have 3 options. Option 1, save aggressively, 20 to 30% of income for 25 years. Retire at 65 comfortably. Option 2, save moderately, 10 to 15% of income. Work until 70 to 75. Retire with reduced lifestyle. Option 3, Don't change anything. Never retire. Work until you physically can't. Those are your options. There's no secret fourth option where you keep your current lifestyle and magically have enough at 65. Option 1 is hard. It requires sacrifice. It requires making choices your friends won't understand. But it's the only option that leads to actual retirement. Here's what I want you to understand. Being 40 and behind is scary, but it's fixable. You have 25 years. That's still enough time for compound interest to work if you're aggressive enough. But you have to start now, not next month, not after you pay off the car. Now. Every year you wait makes it exponentially harder. Wait until 45. And it becomes almost impossible. But if you act today, if you commit to aggressive saving and disciplined investing, you can still retire comfortably. I've seen people in their 40s turn it around. They went from $50,000 saved at 42 to $800,000 at 60 by getting serious and staying disciplined. It required sacrifice, older cars, smaller houses, fewer vacations. But at 60, they had options. They had security. They could retire early or keep working because they wanted to, not because they had to. That can be you. But only if you decide today that retirement is more important than looking successful in your 40s. Your future self will either thank you or curse you based on what you do in the next 12 months. You're 40, you're behind, but you're not out of time yet. Calculate your gap, make your plan, set up automatic contributions, and get to work. Make it count.